What's going on, guys? Mac Down here with a farm strategy summary and review. First one of the league. Today we're going to talk about Harvest in Crimson Temple. I spent quite a bit of time farming at different levels of investment, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit, but for the most part, we are going to focus on the highest level of investment that I did. I will go over the tree that I used, we'll talk about how I set everything up, and then we'll go over the scores. And so let's go ahead and start with the Atlas tree. As always, I don't make the claim that this is the perfect tree or that it's 100% optimized. There's probably ways you could save a point here or there, but I got it to a point where I was pulling out the profit that I was happy with, and it worked out for me. So we're going to start down here and come on up, grab the shrine nodes, grab our map nodes here. We're going to block Ritual, Blight, Metamorph, and Heist. And then over on the other side, we're going to block Legion, Expedition, Abyss, and Breach. Now, I don't know if this is an actual bug or if there's something else going on, but I was seeing quite a few of the Heist interactables as well as Expedition encounters in the maps that I did while I was farming for this, which I thought was pretty strange. So I'd be interested to hear if you guys encountered that as well. And then we're going to come through the shrine nodes here, grab some Harbinger nodes. Then we're going to grab all the Harvest here. Singular focus. Finish out the map nodes, most importantly shaping the valleys. And over here we're going to grab the Delirium Mirror nodes just to increase the chances that we get those. Then we're going to come up through here. We're going to swing all the way around. We're going to grab the top hat. And there's a few map duplication nodes here that we're going to grab. Come around, grab your Eater of Worlds nodes. And then also here. Harvest nodes here. Harbinger here. And then come up into the middle, finish out the shrines. Finish out the Harbinger, grab a little bit of rarity and quantity, and then finally grab these Harvest nodes here. And you are also going to want to have Growing Hordes allocated for this strategy. But once I finished up, I unallocated that because I've been just slamming some random maps out and go here the last couple hours before I started filming. And then a couple other things to note. If you have extra points or if you don't want to do Harbinger, you could of course grab some more Quant here, eke a little bit more out there. You could go deeper into Delirium if you wanted to. You could grab less map nodes if you're already sitting on a huge pool of maps and then grab some additional stuff. I did not take any of these nodes over here. You of course could if you wanted to try and focus more on the yellow life force. And of course, remember, these actually decrease the likelihood. So if you want more yellow, you want to fill out these two sets of 3 nodes. But for these purposes, I was not particularly concerned with that. The prices weren't that different. You're only talking about a couple thousand life force different for the most part. And essentially, that is the tree. That is the one that I used for the highest investment, highest profit yield version of the strategy. And so let's jump over and I'll show you how I set it up. And then we'll talk about the different levels that I did. Alright, setup is pretty easy. You're going to want to run corrupted maps that look something like one of these. I preferred anything that was over about 40 to 42% monster pack size, and of course you want as much quantity on there as you can get. You can also run corrupted maps, but you will need the additional sextant that gives you 20% pack size in your unidentified maps. And then you're going to run any of these. The color does not matter. The yellow ones are a little bit more expensive, and when buying in bulk, I found it was actually kind of difficult to find guys that had a lot of the yellow ones, and so I went ahead and just grabbed 10 of the purple variant at a time, and that worked out pretty well. And then, of course, you're going to need Sacred Grove compasses. And make sure, of course, that you're grabbing these with 4 uses on them. Alright, and over here at the map device, you're going to want to run Fortune Favors the Brave, Blue Altars, of course, and then you're going to need 4 scarabs of any type that is cheap, essentially. Now, full disclosure, I had a lot of scarabs from doing strong boxes at the beginning of the league. And so I just went ahead and blew through those. And then honestly, towards the end of my 3rd or 4th set, I can't remember how many sets of 40 maps I did, I actually started using some polished and even a couple gilded scarabs because I just didn't want to have to buy them in bulk. So you'll want to factor that into the cost. If you do not have any scarabs, you're going to be buying them. It's going to eat into your profit a little bit. And then in terms of trying to quantify the investment a little bit, I think basically to get everything set up, again, not including the scarabs, it was about 4 div and change for each set of 40 maps, and I was pulling out about 13 to 14 div when I did that. So roughly tripling the money, give or take, each time I set this up, and that seemed pretty good to me. I was able to farm up currency pretty quickly, buy some upgrades for the build. I've still got quite a bit of div sitting in the bank after all is said and done. And now let me talk a little bit about the different levels that I tried and some of my thoughts about that. Now, as always, I'm not a spreadsheet guy. I just kind of keep track a little bit in my head as I go. I'm trying to give you guys a ballpark estimate of what this is going to feel like, not a scientific, you know, by the numbers type thing. I think realistically, most of the spreadsheet stuff that you see on YouTube is a little bit misleading because it's really almost impossible for one person to do a sample size that's big enough to give you any concrete data. So I'm going to be speaking in general averages and individual impressions. It's all subjective, etc., etc. Now, for quite a while at the beginning of this, I ran red altars. And in the end, I think I preferred that actually, because the trickle income, particularly from Awakened Sextants, I think really does make up and even surpass the additional benefit of the blue altars, which is that you get the increased effect of upsides from one of the nodes. And then on top of that, you just really don't get anything good from the blue altars unless you're going to hit the divine, and I never saw one of those. And as a quick side note, I've got to say probably almost 1,000 maps deep at this point, and I haven't seen a single apothecary. And for the last several leagues in a row, I would say by this point I would have had at least 2, if not 3. And that could just be that I got really unlucky this league and I got extremely lucky in previous leagues. Who's to say? But nonetheless, just as a general impression, it seems like the big hits are dropping less, and so something like Harvest that is really consistent money, I think is actually even more valuable this league than it might have been last league. But anyway, back to the different levels here. Running the exact same strat as I have laid out for you here, but switching the blue altars out for the red altars, you're getting maybe a little bit less life force, and you're having to deal with a little bit more iffy mods on the quant altar selections that you make. But I found that the trickle income was well worth it, and so I think if I was to do this again, I would abandon the blue altars and just stick with the red ones. And I would say that at the high investment level that I was doing here, the highest one that I went for in this strategy, I was averaging about 4,000 to 5,500 life force per map. On the low end, sometimes I would have a really well-rolled map and just get really unlucky with the altars, and I would pull out 1,500 or 2K. I think my biggest hit was about 7,000 out of one map, and that was where I got a boss and then several of the light blue text at the bottom of the seed options that were 3, and then I had several times in the same harvest where the plant did not wilt after I completed one of the 2 encounters, and I only saw that happen once, so take that for what you will. Now at the lower end, when I was not using any of the sextants and not running growing hordes, I would say that on average in maps where I was encountering the Sacred Grove, because of course if you're not using the sextants, then you probably want to take the option on the Atlas tree for just straight up harvest chance at the bottom of the tree. And I would say I was still encountering a harvest 4 out of 5 maps, but you will encounter maps that don't have one. But when I encountered a harvest at basically 0 investment, so no upfront cost, I was averaging about 1,000 to 1,500 life force per map. And of course, you're not dealing with the double health pool from the sextant, and so I actually think that I enjoyed that more than the high investment, because these maps are nasty, particularly from my character that's made out of paper. I died a lot. I'm going to leave in the footage that I show some of the death stuff that happens, particularly in the harvest encounters. I was routinely 4 and 5 portaling these maps, and I think once or twice, maybe 1 out of every 30 maps or so, I would just straight up brick the map. There would just be a combination of mods and my poor play and so on. that resulted in I would start a harvest encounter and there'd be a bunch of the dudes that just jump on you, and that was just it. I would just run in and die over and over. And so that's the thing to keep in mind. If you have a character that can just absolutely smash these, one-shot all of it, just crush the entire thing, you could maybe even pull out more profit than I did and have a all-around smoother experience. So again, at the low end with no investment, I was averaging about 1,000 to 1,500 harvest essence, life force, whatever, per map. And then at the top end, I was getting about 4.5 to 6K. Now, somewhere in the middle, which is where, and at the low end, I wasn't running corrupted maps or anything like that either. This was just straight up, basically, out and go with all the harvest stuff on the tree. When I went kind of in the middle, still red altars, but I did corrupt the maps and select for the 40 to 45% pack size and ran Fortune Favors the Brave. In that case, I found that, again, you still would encounter maps where you didn't have a harvest, which felt bad. But when there was a harvest, which was, again, about 3 to 4 out of 5 maps, in those cases, I was getting about 2,000 to 3,000 life force per map. And I really do think that for the average blaster like myself, that's kind of the sweet spot. I wasn't having to trade for a bunch of sextants and bulk buy and so on and so forth. And I wasn't dealing with the extra health from the sextant that it puts onto the harvest monsters. I was blasting a little bit faster. I felt like the gains were pretty good. I was making pretty solid profit. So if you're looking for a more sustainable long-term strategy, I guess that's what I would recommend, is forego the sextants, just run Fortune Favors the Brave, take all the harvest stuff on the tree, get in there and blast, run corrupted maps with good quant and pack size, and I found like the profits there were very good. So, having said all of that, let's jump over and take a look at the scorecard for this strategy. I intentionally did not look at the score that I gave the most similar strategy that I ran last week, which I believe was a Harvest Essence variant, because I wanted to offer my, more up-to-date, immediate impressions and not be influenced by trying to compare and contrast directly between the two leagues. And so, in this case, for fun, I'm giving this one a 7. It was a good time, but again, the maps are really rough at the top end there, and especially when you click a bunch of the altars and you get in there to the harvest, they've got double health. That was a little bit rough, and for my character, there were a lot of deaths. So maybe for you, this would be an 8 if your character is tankier and has more damage than mine. I have not been going really crazy this league with trying to min-max my character and make it, super high damage, so on and so forth. I've just been taking it a little bit easier in that department this league, and so that did affect the fun a little bit. Repeatability, I'm going to give this an 8. It is something that you can just do over and over and over. The sextants are readily available on TFT. It's not a problem to get a hold of those, aside from just the general issue of having to actually deal with TFT and deal with bulk buying, but availability is there. Now, scalability, I'm going to give this a 9. Because, as I said, there were multiple levels that I thought had consistent profit margins and that were pretty reliable in terms of being able to just do over and over again. And I think you could really, potentially you could go even deeper than I did. You could try and, as I said, add some additional delirium stuff on top of the stuff that I already have on the Atlas tree. You could even throw delirium orbs on the map. You could modify the strat a little bit and maybe fit in strong boxes and try and go for a 40% deli with strong boxes and harvest type thing and see if you could farm up an apothecary. So you could definitely go further than I did. I think the scalability was really good with this strategy. Profit, I'm going to give it an 8. Very consistent, good profit. As I said, I was about tripling my investment for each set of 40 maps, and so that's really good. And then for efficiency, I'm going to give it a 6.5 because you are dealing with having to have all the scarabs on hand. You have to corrupt all your maps. You have to, and then sort them after that. And you have to be dealing with TFT in terms of purchasing all your sextants. And so it gets a lower score on that. If you are averse to a lot of pre-mapping setup, then this might not be the perfect strat for you. And we have a combined score then of 7.6, which is a pretty solid score, a very good strat. I enjoyed it. If I get to a point later on where I'm hard up for currency, this is definitely a thing that I will fall back on. As a quick side note, Crouching Tuna had a fantastic video that I drew quite a bit of information from in setting this up, particularly for the higher investment version. And I did modify it a little bit. I don't think he was running any Harbinger. And other than that, though, it more or less I was running a pretty similar tree to what he had. And there are some other content creators, too, that I've seen that have some really good videos on this topic. But my score is 7.6. Very good strategy. I would do it again. And that is about all I've got for you guys today. I've got one or two more of these at least planned for this league. Maybe not as many as last time around, but we're going to see how it goes. If there is a strategy that you would like to see me try, let me know in the comments below. I hope you did find something interesting or engaging in the video. If you did, please do give me a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. I appreciate you.